Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and continuing to engage with the content that we put out on recovery and addiction related topics. And I'm excited because today on Rebuilding Life After Addiction, I've got one of our early guests on, John Higginbotham, who is a health coach and fitness expert and a friend as well. And I'm excited to be able to talk to him again. And for those of you who are watching, if you're catching this at the beginning, please take a moment and hit the like button, leave us a comment, let us know where you're watching from. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and also leave us a comment below as well. All of your engagement helps these conversations get out to more people. And as we go into the new year, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic that they like to think about immediately after going through the Christmas and Thanksgiving holidays and eating a lot. We're going to talk about living a healthy lifestyle in regards to diet, exercise, and there's a lot more that goes into that. But I've asked John specifically to come in and talk a little bit about the idea of diet and exercise as it contributes to recovery, right? As it contributes to the process of, getting free from drugs and what role living completely healthy lifestyles, matter and assist in that. John, I was telling you a little bit offline that one of the things I've seen over the years working with folks at Teen Challenge and yeah, just seeing folks get free from addiction, but then like they start to put weight on, and there's a point where they start to put weight on and it doesn't stop. Right, they keep putting the
Yeah,
weight on. And yeah, so I want to talk to you a little bit about that today. But man, first off, how are you?
doing good, doing good. I wasn't. Yeah, I, I was looking forward to being here, and it's a it's a weekend when we're recording this, so I always enjoy my weekends a little bit. So it's good to be here, and it's a fun topic because so many things that are involved in addiction or in health and fitness or diet, um, all kind of they all kind of tie into the same pathways of behavior, and so I call myself a health coach, but really at the end of the day, the way that we're trained, it's really I'm a behavior
Mm,
specialist, a behavior change specialist. So I think it I think they're very related,
yeah.
as you and I have talked about before. So yeah, I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
thanks so much for coming on. And man, I'm excited because I know you've got a group coaching program that you're launching very soon for folks that are kind of looking for some assistance in this whole process. And man, we'll on definitely give some folks some direction on how they can connect with you on that here at the end of the conversation. But on having that accountability is so important. And so let's dive right in, man, and talk about you talk about the similarities, and it might be good to recap that a little bit, right? In our last conversation, for those who aren't here, I'll drop the link in the description. You can go back and check out that conversation. But so behavior changes in regards to diet and exercise, and then behavior changes that often need to take place in the recovery journey, making the decision to quit using drugs and alcohol, right? I mean, what are the similarities there? Can you unpack that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I'm not a, a, a doctor or a neuroscientist or anything like that. But, the dopamine pathway, is really, it's the same no matter what the addiction is. So the amount of time that it takes to become addicted, um, or to break an addiction are really the same. So they're very related. It's still that reward, pleasure, reward, pain, pleasure pathway. So you can treat them very similarly. Uh, yeah. So it's they're so related. They're the same thing. I mean, to say that they're not the same thing is would not be accurate.
So when you say how long the amount of time that it takes for somebody to become addicted in regards to what's happening with the dopamine and the reward system and all that, I mean, what does that typically look like?
So there's always, your body always has this play between um uh you know, having these dopamine spikes and then resetting that. And the problem is that, you know, we reset that, but whether we're eating a donut or snorting some coke, we're spiking our dopamine, and then every time after that, it takes a little bit more of that, or maybe not necessarily more, but you know, less time between between your addictions, um, to create the same dopamine spike. So to you know, to break that addiction, it's going to take, the first 10 days is going to stink,
Hmm.
you know, and then I tell people the first 2 weeks. So whether it's food or whether it's meth,
Right.
it's going to take you the same amount of time to break that. um, but we can get into, you know, maybe how to do that, but the time frames are basically the same. And I don't know exactly what you teach in, you know, drug recovery or addiction recovery when it relates to drugs, but um, most everything else, um, I would imagine, are the same. But um, you have to be away from the
Hmm.
addiction, and so that's why treatment programs are so good, because sometimes the addiction is so strong that you have to be away from
Yeah.
it. um, you can't have access, right? So but breaking that addiction, um, it's probably going to take 30 days to reset those dopamine levels. And so it's a progression. The first 10 to 14 days is really painful.
Yeah.
Um, and then it starts to let up. But I didn't actually purposely wear this shirt,
Right.
but you really do. I don't know
It's a good
what's
book.
taught. Yeah, it certainly is. But it you do, if you just concentrate on the day,
Hmm.
then you don't have to win the 30
Right.
days,
Yeah.
right? That it takes to reset those dopamine levels. You just need to win
That's right.
today. Do what needs to be done today.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that 2 weeks, you know, because at TC, we typically, you know, we're more of a discipleship ministry than we are a drug treatment program. You know, we happen to work with folks that are dealing with addiction, but like, you know, TC is typical 2 week blackout when they come in, right? Because the first 2 weeks, the temptations are higher. You know, you get on the phone with somebody, a little bit more stress, and it's, you know, out the door like a light. And so we kind of always had that 2 week period in there where there is kind of like, and it stinks. It's a shock at first. I'm going to be disconnected from everybody I know, everybody I love for 2 weeks. But the reality is that those first 2 weeks are always so difficult and problematic that it doesn't take much, right? For a relapse or to run back in that period. And so you talk about the dopamine. And so diet and exercise, right? Let's just get into the topic that nobody wants to talk about, right? Most people, unlike you want to talk about it all the time. So, but like,
mm,
you know, man, like the diet and exercise portion in early stages of recovery, I mean, how does that contribute to the process, right? Of helping what's going on with the dopamine and all of that? Like, what role does that play?
yeah, it's really, um, addictive personalities really, you need to well, addictive personalities especially need to have another addiction. I mean, or at least they feel the need. So that's usually where these new behaviors come up. So it's making sure that you're not doing the one thing that you're trying to avoid, you know, but also, you know, filling those, you know, that dopamine, because we get, you know, whether it's eating a donut or, you know, like we talked about earlier, whether it's eating a donut or snorting some coke, you're getting a dopamine boost from that. So yeah, taking yeah, resetting for 30 days is really a key. So replacing that and not developing new bad
Mm,
habits, um, is really something that you need to kind of focus on.
yeah, that's good. And so let's say, John, I am fresh into my recovery journey. I am looking at this process, man. And sometimes I think, you know, I think sometimes diet and exercise, especially at the beginning, can be overlooked because I'm just trying to get off of whatever insert drug here. Right. And so But, like, if I'm starting this journey out, I mean, from your perspective, and I know you're not a doctor, and obviously, I would recommend anybody that's gonna start a heavy exercise routine the day after they stop using drugs, have a conversation with your doc so you don't kill yourself. Like, I think there is some common sense there, and I just wanna put that out there for disclaimer, disclosure, like, but, like, if I'm getting going in this journey, I mean, what are some of the first and most important exercises or changes that you'd recommend that I make? I'm living a sedentary lifestyle. I am on, coming off the drug lifestyle, and I'm facing this thing from day one. What steps should I take going forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you're coming from a sedentary lifestyle, then I would just immediately set up, you know, some something that takes you out of that sedentary lifestyle. Whether it's, especially if you're in a place where you're removed from society a little bit, you know, um, doing body weight exercises, whether it's push-ups or sit-ups or air squats, or, there are ways to do things like, shoulder presses, and, you do your sit-ups and or pull-ups on a door jam or something. But, developing a habit of just saying, hey, listen, I know I'm fighting this addiction. I need to fight that addiction with another healthy addiction. Being addicted to an endorphin rush, from exercise, is another way of feeling better. And so replacing a bad habit with a good habit, is probably the easiest step,
Yeah.
I think, in getting somebody to that next, to a full 30-day recovery
Yeah.
plus.
And we're talking about, right, a holistic recovery realistically and looking at all the angles, right? It's mind, body, and spirit, and being able to focus on all of that. And, practically speaking, man, I mean, some of the biggest battles for those of us battling addiction, whatever that might be, are up here, and getting the mind squared away and being able to you start to think properly again. And what role does exercise and diet play in our thoughts, right? And getting clarity of thoughts. I mean, I've read things about, on a lack of sleep and other stuff and how it impacts your thinking processes. But what about lack of exercise, in regards to what it steals from us versus adding exercise in regards to what it adds to our thought processes and how we think more clearly?
Yeah, well, getting oxygen to your brain, is such a big piece. I think developing. I think there's five basic pillars of health, and that is, one is you got to move. Secondly, you have to breathe. You need mindful eating. You need good sleep, and you need hydration.
Mm.
So literally, if you could just focus on those five things, oh gosh, man, it just sets you off on the right path.
Yeah. So sometimes, like, I know people that are struggling with addiction, man, we tend to be, what's the word I'm like, all in or not at all, right? Like, we are, like, hardcore, and I think sometimes that mindset can set us up for failure, and can create some obstacles because we end up starting a path or a pattern that is not sustainable for the long run. And so then we hit our first few obstacles, and it's like the disappointment sets in, and now I just stop all of it, rather than adjusting. And so, I mean, this is applicable to people in recovery or just folks trying to get get to a better and a healthier lifestyle. But what kind of obstacles do you see people face, right, when they're starting to try to adjust their diet and exercise routines? And how do you help people? How would you encourage people to navigate some of those obstacles that they start to face, when they're trying to implement this lifestyle?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just developing the new habits of, like, I've heard of folks, and actually I've used the technique, but you just going to the gym, literally, even if you only walk in and spent 5 minutes, and then walked out. But you develop the habit of 5 days a week or whatever your goal is of actually just doing the thing.
Mm,
um, just that in itself just starts to create a better and a new pattern.
right.
And so that's one place I think I'd start.
Yeah. So just building that habits. And so what about like for, when the obstacles pop up, right? So let's say I've been rolling for a week or two and then I don't know, man. There are 30,000 reasons, right, that somebody could find to not make time for their exercise or slip by McDonald's and decide to order the double quarter pounder meal with the large fry and the large Coke, right? Or the Diet Coke to make us
Hmm.
feel better and feel like we're doing something good for ourselves. But I mean, some of those obstacles that pop up, I mean, what do those look like? And yeah,
Wow, there, unfortunately, they're endless. And so I think the thing to do from the beginning is, and we do this from a health coaching model where we ask people, what do you see that could prevent you, from making this one change? So we kind of narrow it down to what are the actions that you want to take. And then, so in action number one, what what do you see as some of the obstacles? It's eating well. Well, my kids love this food, and so when I cook, this is so. You know what I'm saying? So when we come up with what the goal is to achieve, and then we name these obstacles, and then we address those. What are ways that we can overcome that obstacles? How can we add accountability? With other people, and getting other people in your life to um, kind of be, you know, on your team, to give you support. Hey, listen, I'm going to tell five of my closest friends that I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to do it consistently. And can I report into you every day?
mhm,
And if you don't hear from me, can you give me a heads up and hit me up and go, hey, did you do the thing? And I think that's, getting enlisting people to help you, the people that love you and care about you and that want to see the change.
yeah,
And then identifying one first the goal, and then secondly the obstacles, and then what are some ways that we can, avoid those obstacles or address them when they come up,
yeah, yeah. That's
for sure.
that's really good. And you talk about, I mean, accountability, and that's such an important topic, right? And we hit on that all the time in the recovery world that, accountability is so vital, and I mean, what do you I guess that's the part, right, where I see a lot of people struggle with, like, maybe it's self-reliance, maybe it's pride, not wanting to feel like we're admitting our weakness by inviting people in and having to ask folks for help, right? I mean, that I think the 12 steppers, like, really the first step is always admitting our powerlessness over this, right? And it really is acknowledging that we can't do this alone. If we could, we would have already done it alone. Right. And so there's
Mm.
that process of making the adjustments in our life and being humble enough and being committed enough to our growth that we're willing to bring some other people in. And my buddy and I, Rob, that gets on here with me a lot, man, the co-host, and we talked a few weeks ago about, like, relationships and fellowship and how important that is in every area of life. And that we need accountability partners, not co-defendants, right? Like, and that
Yep.
that distinction there of being able to engage that good accountability to help. Man, have you struggled with that ever? Like, you're reaching out and being able to engage with accountability. I mean, in your health journey, have you been pretty self-reliant,
Mm.
or, like, and I'd love to hear some of
Huh.
your story on that.
Yeah, when it comes to my health, I've had some, as you know, and maybe some of your audience don't know, I've had some obstacles that were pretty much in my face that I needed. I don't know if you would like for me to address that a little
Yeah, go
bit, but
ahead. Yeah.
you know, 60 feet fall off of Raven's Roost 15 years ago put me on a path where I was told that I probably wouldn't be able to walk right or at all. um, and that I might have some, neurological problems. And that, yeah, being faced with a challenge like that, like honestly, a lot of people with any kind of addiction, it's a huge obstacle. And so, I think having something in your face like that, man, I couldn't have done it without other
Mm.
people. I've learned in business and in friendships and families and even my addictions that I need other people. People need people. And I think maybe admitting that first is probably a good idea. But man, I tell you what, I couldn't have made it through any of my challenges, without enlisting the people that cared for me the most.
Yeah.
And, even if you don't have a lot of people around you that you feel like care, there's somebody there, and you need to search those folks out and enlist them, even if there's only one person or two. But as many people as you can get on your team, and and let them know what your goals are, and that, hey, listen, I know we all need accountability. Will you help me with this? I mean, I think would just be
Yeah,
tremendous.
yeah,
I mean,
that's really good, man. And I think it's important. I think the context there of that, like, we're here, we're on this call, right? And you are, you're in shape. People see that, but like sometimes you see that, and it's like, man, that's a mountain I can never get to. He's already there, but you hear the journey that this just wasn't overnight. That there was some insurmountable odds that you had to overcome, and part of that is maintaining the discipline and the health, but also realizing that I've got to engage some other people in this process and helping me through the journey and to get where you're at today. And tomorrow I'm preaching on really kind of going into the new year. Everybody starts talking about resolutions and goals, and sometimes we set these extremely lofty goals, which I think is good. I don't have a problem with setting big goals, but the direction I'm going with the message is that if the heart isn't prepared, the weight of the goal when we achieve it can actually crush us. So we could be praying for something and expecting an outcome that we're not prepared for, right? And I think that's the
right,
part of this journey of health and trying to maintain motivation and whatnot. It's like, okay, I know that this is going to be difficult. I've struggled with it my entire life, and whatever that might be. So I'm going to do the work of propping the goal up, because it's going to greatly increase my chances of actually hitting that goal if I put the proper support in place. And I'd love to talk to you about that for a minute, the strategies maybe for maintaining that motivation. Right. We talked about one, which is good accountability, but on what other strategies, would you suggest for somebody? Because, New Year's resolutions, what do they say? Typically, they're all broken within the first week of the year.
yeah, a week to 10 days
So how
ish.
do I
Ten
how
to
do I get past the 10 days, John?
win the day.
Yes.
No, really. I mean, I hate to keep coming back to that, but it really is figuring out what your goal is and then breaking that goal down into 24-hour
Yeah, it's
pieces.
good.
You know, you can't, it's like I tell folks sometimes that I coach for weight loss, let's say. And, weight loss, somebody wants to, I gained 40, I was 244 pounds when I fell off Raven's Roost. And I'm about 40 pounds less than that now, but I didn't put that 40 extra pounds on in a day.
Mm,
I didn't even put them on in 30 days. So I needed to have a goal for I needed to break that down as what is my not daily, but what's my weekly or monthly goal on this thing.
mm,
So grab the goal and then break it down into bite-sized pieces. You know, hey, the best way to eat an elephant, right, is one bite at a
right.
time,
Yeah.
right? And so your elephant might be you might be the elephant in the room. I've been there. So yeah, one bite at a
Yeah.
time. And I think taking it's great to have big goals, but I think you set yourself up for failure if you don't now take that goal and then break it down into bite-sized pieces that you can achieve a little bit at a time, so you get these little wins, and those little wins give you that dopamine
Right.
spike, right? The dopamine that you're trying to replace, you're now getting these daily wins, and you set yourself up for failure if you don't break those down into bite-sized pieces. And I think that's the best way to keep a positive mental attitude and just keep going forward. Now, I don't know if you've read a book. I know it's by Jeff Olson. It's called The Slight
Mm,
Edge. And it really is about mastering the mundane, doing one thing each day, every day, and just taking what's in front of you and winning the day
yeah.
and completing your goal. So breaking that goal down into bite-sized daily pieces, I think is the only way to do it without setting yourself up for failure. I mean, I had a goal to lose 40 pounds, but I knew I wasn't going to drop it in no time. So yeah, having those bite-sized pieces, those broken down goals, is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, and that's so good, man. And I think that again, not to keep beating the drum of community, but like having those people around you that, can help you, man, sort through those goals, right? And not discounting the little steps of progress. That's what makes recovery programs so powerful, right? Like places like TC, it's the encouragement on the little wins. It's when a guy pauses in the middle of the day to pray for somebody else instead of going off on them. It's like, hey, that's a win. Well done. And it's like most of us, I think sometimes we're like, well, why should I celebrate something they should just be doing anyways? Well, it's because it's that motivation, it's that encouragement that you praise the behaviors. We do this with our kids all the time. We praise the behaviors we want to see repeated, and even as adults,
Yep.
we still respond to that same thing. And when
Yep.
we're encouraged and we're praised in something, like we continue in that pattern. And so I think that part of community and working with somebody that's able to kind of dissect these goals with us and say, hey, I know you want to lose 100 pounds, and that's a tremendous goal, but not to tell you that you can't reach that, but let's break that down into some short range goals. Let's get to 5 pounds first,
Yep.
right? Or whatever that is. And how do we then break that down into what actions do I have to take on a daily basis? And those are the things, those simple actions, right, are the ones that we're praising day after day after day. That accountability, that support, man. It's so good, man. And so let's talk about your upcoming group coaching program, John. And I am segueing right into this on purpose because, man, you're rolling out an 90-day group coaching program for this purpose, right? To get with people, provide community, accountability. And for the person that is like, I know that I need help, I know that I need to do something different, you're going to help them structure that, right? And figure out what it is they need to do. Like, there's so much information on the internet, and it's hard to decide, like, who do I listen to, right? Who do I engage with? My sister, she is like a Google expert. You're right. And so I think we talked about this last time. She every time she has a cough, she's got six conditions. And like, I say that in jest, but talk to me a little bit about your group coaching program and kind of what that's going to look like.
Yeah. Well, it's you're right that having a group of people that are in your corner that know that are there to help celebrate your wins, and that can be there to encourage you and you them, because I saw a study once that talked about people that that do good for other people, they experience this endorphin rush, for doing good. But actually being actually seeing someone do good for other people actually gives you the same endorphin rush. And so, being in a group, not only do you get the help, right, and you get the encouragement, but you can be an encouragement to other people, and it just man, it just feeds on itself. And so I'm excited about it. I know sometimes in group sessions, there might be things that people don't want to share, um, but we can we can a lot of times talk offline about that kind of stuff. But yeah, being in a group, and I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Um, Group coaching is a little bit more difficult than one-on-one, um, but we'll do the same things, and then I'll have a group of accountability partners that can help encourage us to make those changes that we want to make, even if it's just something as small as getting better sleep
Right.
or drinking, it drinking water, staying hydrated. um
Not alcohol.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
right.
We're we're
Yeah, for
we're not
sure.
gonna be health coaching over shots of tequila. No.
No, I could do a whole video on alcohol and its effect on the human body. And I don't want to be a buzzkill to anybody. Maybe I do,
Yeah,
but it's yeah, that's terrible stuff. But I'm really looking forward to the group coaching thing, um and then how we can put that together and help make a change for a group of
that's
people.
awesome. So you've got John, the expert, the health coach, and the practitioner of this stuff. And that's the part, right? It's like we're taking advice, we're connecting with somebody who's done this. And man, I know John has just spent the last several months, I'm probably downsizing the amount of time that he's been engaging in training and courses and working on this process of getting board certified and all this stuff that you're working on, like, and the expertise that you carry. And so being able to take 90 days out of the first of the year, connect with a group of people, like-minded people on a weekly basis that just want to see their health improve. And we hit on this our last conversation where we talked about kind of the why behind it all, right? And it's figuring out the why for you. And I mentioned that, like, it's crazy. I still probably I need to adjust personally with some diet stuff, but like, man, I've been more intentional the last couple months, kind of just cutting back on stuff and not eating as much, and working on that part of my life. And the reality of it, I think when we talked last time, was that, man, I was putting weight on and realizing it when I chased my daughter across the yard. Like, and
Right.
you feel that, and it's like, oh, like, and those are the type of things that start to have you look at this. I went to the doctor 6 months ago, and they they had been keeping track of my blood pressure for the last year. And it's one thing, I'm one of those people that get really nervous in the doctor's office, and so my blood pressure always spikes a little bit. I probably had a shot of espresso before going in there, but she had tracked this over a year and my blood pressure was not good. And, I went home and had that conversation with my wife. They're going to put me on blood pressure meds. And, she looks at me and she's like, you got to take care of yourself. Like, we need you. And that, like, man, that hits you, and over the last couple months, like, I went back to the doctor, blood pressure's back at normal levels, you know what I'm saying? But some of those heart to heart conversations, some of those things really, really start to kind of move that needle. And I would just challenge folks that are listening to this, and I'm gonna give you a second to chime in on this, John. I promise I'm gonna stop preaching. Um, but ask the why. What is the motivation for doing this? What is the drive? Right? We all have things that we want to do in life. And one of the things I love about talking to you, John, is that you're consistently talking about just wanting to help make people's lives better. Like, I don't want to see somebody die a slow, painful death for something that can be prevented. And
Yep.
that is the heart
Yep.
behind it, right? And so I'd love for you to speak to that for just a few minutes as we close out, man, and encouraging folks to find that why.
Yeah. No, man. I've we all have done this, so I know I'm not in the room by myself. But we watch family members literally dig their own graves with their teeth. and they have terrible habits. You know, they don't exercise, they don't do anything, and you know, I want to be able to just get out in the yard or even on a ball field and play with my grandkids and have them just remember those days of my grandpa did this. It was like, really? My dad couldn't do that, you know? But and it's not because of somebody can or somebody can't. It's just the fact of being with my family and being able to participate in their lives and enjoy that. Man, I tell you what, it's, you know, I used to tell people that you can't out train a bad diet.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm beginning to think that maybe you can.
Mhm.
Well, or at least you can help, because the one thing that you need to do is definitely is get some movement, get some blood pressure going, and um, I, I don't know. I think that's I we've all watched family members go through things and have health scares, and you know, I think too. I have a father who is diabetic. He's type 2, and I hate to say this, but type 2 diabetes is self-inflicted.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's not type 1, so you weren't born with a pancreas that wouldn't make insulin. You know, you actually, you know, I've actually killed off and or killed off some of your pancreas. So a lot of times the beta cells in your pancreas can just literally not be able to function after so many years. But the biggest glucose sink we have are our muscles. So getting active, moving and breathing and eating well, man, just makes such a big difference in how you feel day to
Mhm.
day, living longer and being able to do more longer. You know, being able to get out in the yard with your kids or your grandkids, and it's a real thing that it's just one of those habits that we need to pick up. And you know, developing some short range or long, both short and long range plan of just going for a walk, you know, the first week, you know, is something that in the end will end up just saving people massive amounts of heartache, and you feel so much better. Life is so much more enjoyable when you can do the things that you want to do. And so I'm looking forward to, you know, I've been in the mortgage business for years, for 22 years now, and real estate for 5 years before that. And this is for me kind of just a passion. You know, I first was inflicted, you know, with some injuries that I put on myself, falling 60 feet. But that led me to really look at what made me more physically capable. And so I really want to do that for other people. I want, even if they're just small changes, you know, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to eat that extreme, you know, or whatever, but just making small changes will make
Mhm.
massive differences. And they're just small wins that stack up on each other, and that just contribute greatly to your life. You don't realize it um, until you actually start to
So
experience
could I
that.
ask you then, I mean, 22 years in the mortgage business, 5 years doing real estate, that's 27 years of doing something in the same field. And now here you are. How old are you, John? So you're
56.
56 and you're pursuing a career in health coaching, right? That's a big leap. And people think about that. That been making that change at this stage of life, man. And like speak to the motivation behind that for a few minutes, because that's pretty significant, that you're at this place of wanting to make this change in your life to help people. Can you go a little deeper into your motivation on that?
Yeah, you know, I when I you know, it's funny how you learn things and you kind of learn them along the way. You would have thought I learned 15 years ago when I fell off the cliff, but um, you know, you don't realize. I don't think you. I don't know. Let me start over. You don't realize. You think you would realize right away the things that change, but sometimes change is a slow process. But for me, it's I I I realized what really
Mhm.
mattered. I had a great mortgage business. It was actually much better then than it is now. And not just because of the economy, because I was in the mortgage business in 2008 in the credit crisis, and I survived, and we all made plenty of money after that. But that wasn't achievement, and success became less important than
Mhm.
significance. Like when I pass away, I want people to show up at my funeral for a lot of reasons, but mainly because that guy did this for me, and literally, I can't say I don't care about making money because
Right.
we all have to keep the electricity on, but you know, it there are other things that matter
Yeah.
more, achievement and helping other humans and witnessing. I've had people that I've coached in the past that literally have lost 100 pounds
Mhm.
plus, and just to kind of hear their to them tell you thank you with tears in their eyes, it's not something that nobody ever. I don't remember a time when I did a mortgage for somebody that they cried. They got tearful over it, but they lost 100 pounds and were off 12 different
They
meds. That makes a
they're probably crying
difference,
now when they
you
see the
know.
interest rates, but for the wrong reasons, you know? Yeah,
Right,
man. No,
right.
that's so powerful. That thing about success and significance. And yeah, I heard a preacher quote this a few years ago, and it stuck with me ever since. He was speaking to a group of pastors, and he said, "You spend the first 10 years of your ministry chasing success, and the next 30 chasing significance." And that man, that has hit me because even in my ministry walk, like early on, it was numbers, numbers, numbers. How many students can I get in the program? How big can we make the church? And the Lord's been dealing with me a lot on that, man, on focusing a little more on depth than width, right? And what you're talking about, that type of significant life change, like that 100 pounds lost for somebody. Like, I know how good I feel when I knock 5 pounds off. Like, I can't imagine the difference in the transformation. And like, for those who are listening that hear that, and it's like, yeah, it's even for the same thing for a person reaching out on the phone. I need to get help and break addiction, right? It seems insurmountable. It seems impossible. And it's like, but we don't have to fix everything today. We've just got to take the first step. And let's break this down. Let's just take that first step. And the benefit of engaging with folks and connecting to somebody like yourself is that they're engaging with somebody that's going to walk with them on every single step. Because some people, I know the support systems don't exist. They're not great for everybody. And for those of us, we can sit in the middle of that and say, hey, I have nobody to help me. Or we can start to pursue the people that will pour into our lives, right? And that's the part where no matter what the struggle is, the personal responsibility element comes in, right? And that's not a shame based thing, but at some point, we've got to kind of move beyond and just make a decision. And I'm going to make that decision. And I would encourage folks watching today. I am pitching hard for John right now because I know your conversation and your time in his group coaching program will change your life if you commit to the process. And so we're going to drop that information down below. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, John will be tagged in the post as well. And I would encourage you to check with him and follow him and all that stuff. John, do you have any parting words, man, as we close out?
Well, man, I tell you what, I appreciate you. Not necessarily, well, for what you do for me as a friend, but also for what you do. And I think the people that have broken addictions in the past, become the most significant in knowing how to help other people change. And so I just really commend you for what you do, your channel, and your work at Teen Challenge. And, um, you know, anybody that I can help make a change. It doesn't even need health to me is not taking drugs too. It's not just what you put in your mouth, or in your, but also what you might put in your arm and up your nose,
Right. Yeah.
right? And so I'm happy to help anybody because man, just
Mhm.
it's just to me, just that's the
Yeah.
juice.
It's
So so I appreciate all the work you do, man. It's I think because of your past is what's going to be so great about your future. And I know that you and I both give God the glory for that, but you had a lot of people that God put in your life and, you did the work, but sometimes we just need a little help. And so anytime I can be a help to anybody, I'd love to help no matter what it's about.
Yeah. And I think that that's that shift, right? As we start to mature, we realize that having help and people in our life is not a detractor, but it becomes an asset, right? The friendships and the
Yeah.
relationships are the greatest asset that we could have as humans. I mean, it's just outside of our salvation, right? I mean, that's the gift that can never be taken away. But what's the old statement? It's not what you know, it's who you know? And that applies in so many areas. And well, John, thanks, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate you jumping on and chatting up about this. And we'll have to get together and have that booze conversation and and break down
Yeah.
some of the stuff because I mean there's some great information out there, but hearing about like some of the impacts of all of that. But for those watching, please take a moment, smash the like. Is that what they smash? Hit the like button. Leave
Yeah.
me a comment. If you had any questions in this conversation, stuff that popped up, please drop those in the comments, and we'll do our best to get back to those. And we'll see you again real soon with another episode. God bless you guys, and have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching.